Hello! Hello, my curious archaeogastronomers. I'm your host, Tom Dinas, and this is the Delicious Legacy Podcast. Thanks for joining me into another tasty adventure. Now, over the years on this podcast, I've talked about Christmas a lot. We've done Tudor Christmas, we've seen Christmas traditional foods from across UK, we've seen my traditional Greek Christmas back home, Christmas in Byzantium, Christmas across Europe, traditional recipes, and so on. But one thing that I haven't touched much is traditional Christmas recipes from regional places all over Greece, from different islands and counties, and from the far north and south and Crete, and all these New Year's traditional recipes and Christmas recipes that people have, all the different ones that makes you immerse into the local laws and the local customs and traditions, and only then you see and understand the differences between all these Greek places. So yeah, on today's episode, I'm gonna talk about that. We'll see some recipes, and I will include some of them on this podcast as we go along. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another delicious legacy adventure. In Peloponnesos, the peninsula of Pelops in Greece's south, like all of Greece, is rife with bread traditions steeped in symbolism and superstition. One of the most delicious local breads is the Christopsomo, made of course at Christmas time and traditionally eaten on Christmas Eve. It was always made with the most expensive ingredients: highly sifted white flour, sesame seeds, and spice mixtures such as aniseed, orange, bay, cinnamon, and cloves. It was decorated with a cross, and it was also called stavropsomo, aka cross bread, garnished with walnuts or almonds, dried figs, and sometimes eggs, a custom that exists in Crete as well. Sometimes too, the home cook who prepared it would score it 5 times, like a hand. The hand of Christ. In Kalamata, in the south of Peloponnesos, and a place which is obviously familiar and famous to all of you for its olives and olive oil, the pastry shops there, and of course further south in the wild villages of Mani, one of the first things visitors notice are the baskets full of lalagna, dough fritters as thin as fingers, sometimes coiled into an unusual oblong shape, fried in the region's ubiquitous olive oil, of course. Traditionally, these were made only on Christmas Eve, as a food meant to ward off the impish little spirits Kalikanzaroi that were said to descend and wreak chaos on the holiday revelry. This Kalikanzaroi is demon-like figures, goblins from the folklore of Greece, and they're believed to dwell underground, spending most of the time sawing a giant tree that supports the earth. But they come to the surface during the 12 days of Christmas. But Kalikanzaroi probably is a subject for another episode altogether. Another thing that people in Peloponnesos make, on New Year's Day, cooks will make diples, which are delicious, light and airy dough fritters drizzled with honey and sprinkled with cinnamon. And of course these are common throughout Greece, but what sets them apart in Peloponnesos is their shape. This is flat and wide. And the word diples comes from the word for double, and is supposed to be for doubling one's years, enjoying a long life. I don't know how much life you're going to double if you eat fried dough, but that's another subject, I think. They're also made at weddings traditionally, and the region's New Year's bread, Vasilopita or Vasilokouloura, has become the benchmark for all such breads in urban Greece, seasoned lavishly with orange and bay and spices and rich with butter and eggs. All the good stuff. Very far north now, in Thrace, at the opposite end of Greece, where winters are hard and long and continental. The national dish of Thrace is something called babo, a poached sausage filled with beef and pork, bulgur or rice, leeks and oregano, and it's the standard fare on the Christmas table. Let's head south in the islands of Cyclades, and specifically at Tinos Island, an island which has a mixed population of Orthodox and Catholic Greeks. So the Catholic specialties of Tinos and the cheeses there are something that we will need an episode on their own, of course, at some point. But I was especially intrigued by the foods of Christmas, which seem to differ and seem so different from those of the rest of Greece. On Christmas Eve, among the Catholic population, seafood and fish provide the basis of a very festive, but of course, fasting meal. And one of the most unusual specialties here is jellied eel, something that you would think is a very London standard, traditional London standard fare. What they eat on Christmas Day is moscharosoupa, which is a beef soup. And I've got a recipe for it I'm going to talk to you about now. The portions here are generous and the recipe is for 8 people. This is a celebratory dish where all the family is gathered after all. So for Christmas beef soup with egg lemon sauce from Tinos, to make 8 servings at least, you'll need about a kilo of stewing beef with the bones, preferably shoulder, 3 celery stalks cut into pieces, 2 large carrots cut into pieces, same size, 1 large onion cut in 4, about 10 cups of water. Obviously, you need to season it with salt and pepper to your taste. 2/3 a cup of short grain rice, 2 large eggs, the juice of at least 1 lemon, maybe 2 according to your taste, and so on. So in the Catholic villages in Tinos, and there are many small little villages dotted in the island, tradition has it that the Christmas table is a communal one, and that the meal takes place in several stages. So the first sitting is for the men of the village only. And they also take their own fork, knife, glass and wine, all tied up in a large napkin. Beef stew, cabbage dolmades, roast beef or pot roast with tomato sauce, and rocket and radish salad make up the traditional fare. So after they are done, the women and children join them, and at this point the soup is served, a simple beef soup with celery, onions, enriched with the avgo lemon sauce. So I've told you the ingredients. Now the recipe is pretty simple. Place the beef and the vegetables in water in a large pot, salt slightly, bring to boil. Once that, reduce the heat to low and simmer for 2 hours, skimming any foam on the top of the soup. Pretty standard fare so far. At this point the meat should be very tender and falling off the bone. Now remove the meat and vegetables with a slotted spoon, set aside on a serving platter and keep warm. Add the rice to the soup and bring to boil. Reduce the heat to low and simmer until the rice is very tender, so roughly 15 minutes. Prepare your egg lemon sauce. With a wire whisk, beat the eggs and the lemon juice together lightly in a small bowl. Add a ladleful of hot broth to the egg mixture slowly in a steady stream, but very slow, whisking all the while. And repeat that with a second ladleful, and so on, until you have a nice thick sauce with the eggs and lemon and the rich broth. Now, pour this avgo lemon into the soup and, tilt the pan back and forth so that it spreads all over and covers all the soup and mixes nicely. It's going to be thick and rich on the top, so you don't want to do the mixing with a spoon. If you want, adjust the seasoning with any salt or lemon juice or pepper. And then to serve the vegetables and meat separately on a platter and serve the soup on individual bowls. You are listening to the Delicious Legacy podcast by me, Tom Dinas. There's more to come after the break, and it gets better. In Naxos, another Cycladic island, they eat something called Patoudo. Generally, that's a stuffed kid or goat that is eaten for Easter. But this time we will have a Patoudo here, which is stuffed with chard, and it's turkey, so perfect for Christmas. So yeah, Patoudo seems to be the name for several stuffed meat dishes, and it can refer to Christmas stuffed bird or Easter stuffed lamb or goat. So depending on the flora in individual places, the stuffings change accordingly. As I said, chard in Naxos is very much the green of choice for both the Christmas turkey and the Easter lamb. But you can also combine some fennel tops, wild fennel, rice, and other greens that you find. Like I think it's a recipe that invites different greens. So for this one, to make for 8 people, again 8 servings, you need 1 cup of extra virgin olive oil, 2 larger onions that you chop them coarsely, probably about 1 kilo of green chard and other greens. So get some fennel, finely chopped, get a bit of spinach, and other flavor stuff like beetroot leaves perhaps, and so on. 1 cup of finely chopped fresh dill as well, and 1/3 cup of ouzo. And you need half a cup of short grain rice and about half a cup of unsalted butter. The turkey innards, the gizzards and stuff finely chopped, and about a nice turkey, which usually it's about 4 kilos, 5 kilos, and about 800 grams of waxy new potatoes, 4 garlic cloves minced, and 2 teaspoons of dried Greek oregano. So this is a more fancy fare compared to the previous recipe. So to do this, we heat up half a cup of olive oil in a large pot over a medium heat, and we cook the onions, stirring for 10 minutes around until they get very nicely wilted. Add the chard, spinach, fennel and dill. Toss and stir until they're wilted a few minutes longer. So I would guess that would be about 5 to 7 minutes. Add the rice, cover and cook slowly over low heat until the pot juices have been absorbed and the rice is plump and tender but not completely cooked. So around 10 to 15 minutes, I think. If using the ouzo, add it to the rice 5 minutes before removing from the heat. Season with salt and pepper. Meanwhile, preheat the oven at 180 degrees for a fan oven or 200 for a conventional oven. In a small skillet, heat 1 tablespoon of the butter over medium heat and cook the gizzards, stirring until browned. Add them to the chard stuffing. Stuff the turkey loosely with the chard and rice mixture and sew closed or secure it with skewers. Rub the bed with some of the remaining butter and season with salt and pepper generously. Place on a rack in a large roasting pan. In a large bowl, toast the potatoes with garlic and season with oregano, salt and pepper, and then place them in the pan around the turkey. Dot them with the remaining butter and drizzle them with the remaining half cup of olive oil. Roast the turkey for 20 minutes. Then reduce the oven temperature to 160 Celsius and roast until the thermometer that you insert on the thickest part of the thigh reads around 80 degrees Celsius and the thigh juices run clear. Perhaps that's 2 to 3 hours, or we'll say 12 to 15 minutes per pound of meat. So in a sense, depends with your oven, how hot runs your oven, or how steady is with the temperature, and so on. Baste every 10 to 15 minutes with the pan juices while roasting. Remove from the oven and let rest for at least 20 minutes. Remove the thread of the skewers that you have and place the stuffing into a bowl and serve the stuffing separately and the turkey on a large serving platter surrounded by the roasted potatoes. There's a small, isolated island, remote from the rest of Greece, on the far, far southeast. It's basically an isolated place in the Dodecanese, and it's 1 mile from the south coast of Turkey. It's 570 kilometers away from Athens. There, they have a fantastic recipe, a sweet sprouted wheat soup with raisins and spices, and it's called chrysafi, which means gold. So it's the color of the wheat, basically. And it's one of the most unusual preparations in all of Greece, I think. Whole wheat kernels have been cooked. Obviously, we know them from other preparations, ritualistic funeral dishes such as koliva, and they're symbolic. They are symbolic of the cycle of nature, of birth, rebirth, and death. But yeah, this festive dish is something different, and it's made on Christmas and New Year's and January the 6th on the Epiphany. The locals there say the sprouts resemble Saint Basil's beard. So Saint Basil is the Greek equivalent of Santa Claus, who brings the gifts. And traditionally, this dish is made as a festive offering from daughter-in-law to mother-in-law. Again, this recipe will serve about 8 to 10 people, and you will also need, rather unusually, some unsprayed lemon, orange, or myrtle or carob leaves from a tree, or some cotton, some sterilized cotton. You need about half a pound of whole wheat kernels, a big cinnamon stick, so 4 inches perhaps, 4 to 6 cloves according to your taste, 1 cup of sugar, 2 cups of dark raisins, and about 1 to 2 tablespoons of ground cinnamon to taste for garnish. So for this recipe, you need to start in advance. Line a basket with the fresh leaves or line a large tray with a cotton and spread the wheat kernels on it. Sprinkle the kernels with water. Leave them for a day and sprinkle them with water daily for several times a day, up to 5 days, until the wheat kernels sprout. Carefully separate the wheat from the leaves or the cotton. If using cotton as a base, removing the wheat will be more time consuming since it will have taken root in the soft cotton. To remove them, pluck a few kernels at the time of the cotton until they are all removed. Pick off any excess cotton from the kernels, rinse gently and drain. Place the sprouted wheat in a large pot and pour in enough water to cover by 3 inches. Bring to a boil and add the cinnamon stick and cloves. Reduce the heat to medium-low and simmer until the wheat is soft enough to eat. About 3 hours, perhaps even more. About 45 minutes before removing from the heat, add the sugar and the raisins. And during the course of simmering the wheat, add more water if necessary to keep the mixture moist and the liquid like a very thick porridge. When the wheat is cooked, remove from the heat and let cool. Obviously, remove the cinnamon stick, and to serve, ladle the sweet soup into serving bowls and sprinkle with cinnamon. You are listening to the Delicious Legacy podcast by me, Tom Dinas. There's more to come after the break, and it gets better. From the far southeast, let's go far south and a little bit to the west. So let's go to Crete. In Crete, at Christmas, omathies, a kind of offal sausage, is the favorite food. Basically, it's stuffed caul filled with rice, offal, and raisins. And it's an ancestor to a dish by the same name, mentioned frequently in Byzantine literature and even predating in fact, called omathies as well. Of course, this is a very traditional one, and I think it's been consigned a bit to the older generations. Also at Christmas, bread is traditionally more important on the table than meat, which is almost always a dish of boiled pork and wheat. Cretan Christmas breads, they have also Christopsomo, as we call them, they come in many versions. Sometimes it is nothing more than a simple round loaf, spiced and highly aromatic with coriander seeds, black pepper, aniseed, cinnamon, cloves, and sometimes sugar. In some villages, it is decorated with an elaborate carved cross in the center. Elsewhere on the islands, the Christopsomo is covered with delicately sculpted designs, small plows, yokes, goat's bells, the Cretan lyre, among other things. In the southern part of central Crete, the Christmas bread is decorated with a dough-sculpted tree, embellished with walnuts and almonds. A custom, according to one local folklorist, that might trace its roots to the ancient worship of trees, which was widespread in Crete allegedly in prehistoric times. In the villages above Rethymnon, where one finds the most ornate breads, the round Christmas loaves are often made to look like the sculpted wooden templates found in Greek churches. One thing remains constant, however, no matter how the bread is decorated. In Crete, as elsewhere, only the master of the house has the right to cut the first slice of Christmas bread, a custom usually upheld for all the specialty holiday breads. Deep in the mountainous and wild northwest Greece, in the region of Epirus, full of wolves and bears, in the beautiful village of Zagori, in the untamed mountains of Vikos. On Christmas Eve, some inhabitants prepare what they still call infant Jesus' clothes. These are thin and stretched crepe-like dough fritters, piled one on top of the other, sprinkled with crushed walnuts and cinnamon, and drenched in sweet syrup. Traditionally, they were stone-baked on a flat stone inside the fireplace. Also in Konica, another of these mountainous villages, they make what is called klostari, which is basically a cylindrical baklava, big and thick like a water pipe. One of the most fascinating fruits and full of lores and traditions and myths is, of course, the fruit pomegranate. And it has a fascinating tradition related to Christmas, which is a whole separate thing from the ancient Greek myths connected with it. So the pomegranate, with its hundreds of ruby-colored seeds, is generally thought to be a symbol of fertility, right? It used to play an important role in wedding ceremonies. In some parts of Greece, the young bride would toss the pomegranate into the new house. As the fruit split open and the seeds poured out, their numbers represented fecundity, prosperity, happiness, etc. In a similar manner, at the stroke of midnight of New Year, the tradition is that the family will smash one on the porch or the entrance of the house and wish the new year to bring health and prosperity. And the wish is, to paraphrase here, to have as many gold coins filling our pockets as there are seeds in this pomegranate fruit. Farmers in some parts of Greece would do the same thing, toss a pomegranate into their fields before planting or even New Year's Eve as well. And today this custom has kind of died out, but obviously the pomegranate itself is still a symbol of prosperity, and my family still smashes one on the porch of the house every New Year's Eve. And of course, as a symbol, there are many renditions of it. So there's a glass and ceramic and other materials, and they make little ornaments and Christmas decorations that decorate the houses for Christmas. In the islands of Zakynthos and Corfu, which had very much a Venetian influence for 400 years, as we said in a previous episode, they make something called sweet mustard or mostarda dolce. And both Zakynthos and Corfu make sweet mustards, but these can be made either with quince or other dried fruits, and they're basically eaten at Christmas with roast turkey, some game meats or pork, or whatever other meats you want. So the recipe that I'm telling you now, this comes from Zakynthos or Zante, and basically involves 3 quinces, peeled and cored, 1 liter of some sweet port wine or Mavrodaphne, which is a Greek sweet wine, quite easy to find in supermarkets, a teaspoon of ground cloves, half a teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg, and 2 teaspoons of dry mustard powder. So basically, cut the quinces in cubes, place in a large saucepan with the wine, bring to boil, reduce the heat to very, very low and simmer covered until the quinces are very soft and the mixture is thick, about 40 minutes. Combine the quinces with the spices and mustard and keep stored in a glass jar in the fridge. Mostarda dolce is an excellent spread on bread, of course, but also, as I said, serve with some cold cuts of meat, or with pork roast, or with game, or your roast turkey on the Christmas table. Okay, and this is all for today's episode. I hope you've enjoyed these rather unusual Greek Christmas recipes, and I hope you make some of them. And do let me know what you think. How do they taste like? Please get in touch at the Delicious Legacy podcast at gmail.com whenever or wherever you can find me on social media, such as Blue Sky and Instagram, for example. I hope you have a great Christmas and great holidays in general, with health and happiness to all and your families and friends. And I do hope this season brings us some much needed rest and peace. And I hope the new year is a little better for everyone and for the world in general. Too much trauma and hurt and nastiness this year. I don't think I can bear it for another one. Please enjoy yourselves, have fun, and take care of your loved ones. I've been Thomas Dinas, and this was the Delicious Legacy Podcast. If you like this episode, please rate and review wherever you get your podcast. It's the best thing you can do to help the podcast grow. So leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and a rating of 5 stars preferably. And then we will talk again very soon. I'll get another episode out. I have a few ones planned very soon. And of course I will continue my little bonus season with conversation with Greek chefs. Take care, love you lots. Talk to you soon. Bye.